Hi, I'm Inksy. Welcome back, hope everyone is doing alright. So, I was looking at all of this drama online about the 2 deaths in Dire Mall hardcore, and I thought I would add something to this because I used to be a mage at a fairly high level. We cleared all of vanilla, we were in the top 10 guilds that had a lot of achievements, and I was a fairly good mage both in PvE and PvP. I mean, I had about 10,000 kills before Battlegrounds even started, and I was always top of DPS. I also raided extensively and did a lot of dungeons because I had way too much free time. You know, a young teenager, skipping school, playing 14 hours of WoW a day. Healthy. So what I want to do with this is not an exercise in trying to assign blame or anything. I want to use this as a learning opportunity because I think I can add a fair amount of information regarding mage play, and all the mistakes that were made by the mage in this case. Let's make something very clear. The fault lies with the tank. He should have not pulled in there, he should have pulled back, he should have paid attention. But as I mentioned, this is not a blame game. I do think that Pirates really messed up. He could have saved everyone, no one should have died there. I also want to use pirate gameplays as an example, a learning opportunity of what a mage should and should not do. I do think he's a mid-level mage at best. He's not that good, judging by the way he utilizes his resources. But that said, this is not about judging his character or person. I have no interest in going back to this Dire topic. Everyone knows what happens, and the main issue is about him not apologizing for the mistake he made. It was not about the play. The play really compounded it and made this bad situation worse. But that's it. Because this is a loaded topic, let's start with a funny comment about my experiences back in the day. It's kind of funny, there's this healer called Sarah, and it really reminded me of a rogue that we had in the guild. So this guy for about 2 years pretended to be a girl. He never spoke on Ventrilo and just spammed emotes all day. And everyone thought he was a girl, including the majority of the server at the time. Turned out he wasn't. That was a big drama at the time. Hilarious. I'm sure anyone who played vanilla had seen similar situations. There's no relevance to this, I just thought it was something funny to start. Alright, let's get into it. So what do I mean that he's not a very good player in resource utilization? Look at how he uses his skills, the way he uses his cooldowns, and mana management principally. All of these indicate to me that he could improve in some places, and so can you if you make these mistakes as well. Alright, let's start in no specific order. First of all, bro, just use add-ons. You do not have damage meters, threat meters, all of that. Your UI is ass, it's just a default, so it makes it very hard to read a lot of important information. This might seem like a small point, but it's important. If you do not have metrics, how can you improve your performance? I mean, I know, you're a middling frost mage, it's not like it'll ever do any damage worth looking at, but don't you want to get better? You need metrics for that. Get add-ons. As a side note, please close those damn bags. It limits your visibility. You need to see what you're doing. You need to see what's around you. But, okay, that's nothing to do with mages. I'm just being petty. Second of all, mages have a lot of very important skills, especially if you're down ranking. For example, Blizzard. You know, what you should have used right there. So why are the top bar buttons not bound? There's no key bindings there. You're missing a fair amount of spells as well. Well, variants of those spells. If you are going to insist not to have key binds, at least bind what matters. For example, Blizzard is not that important as a damage source. This is not WoW after Wrath of the Lich King. AoE is limited, and unless you have a lot of people doing it, it's not going to do anything. It's a waste of mana and time. So if you're only going to bind one, bind the rank 1 one. That's what you're going to be using most of the time. And when you panic, like you did, well, at least you'll be using the correct spell, because you don't have time to think about which one you should use. Speaking of downranking, mana jams. So I can see that he has a mana ruby, but he does not have a mana citrine. Why? You can use several ranks. The sooner you use it, the better. And this is the topic of mana recovery optimization. For example, mana ruby gives you back 1.2k mana. So as soon as you have used around 1.2k mana, you use it straight away. It's a no-brainer. Why? Because then the cooldown is off for whenever you need to. In here, for example, he uses his Blizzard and then stops right away. Why did you stop? You were not in risk. You could have just continued. So take a deep breath, evaluate the situation. It actually buys you a couple of seconds to look at what's happening and make a decision. Alright, but those are all small things, mistakes that can happen. Now the reasons why I think he is not a very good mage. Resource utilization. That's where it really matters. For example, right here, he uses a counterspell. Why? Counterspells have a long cooldown, 30 seconds. Back in the day, we actually used to announce in chat whenever you used counterspell, because you needed to let people know that a very valuable resource is no longer available. I would go as far as to say that If he had not used the counterspell here and he had saved it for when it matters, there might have not been a wipe. The boss would have not been pulled. Why? Observe here. So, he does a counterspell on a random frostbolt. This changes nothing, it's a complete waste of a spell. The healer can take it, the tank can take it, he's adding 0 value. When you want to use the counterspell is right here. Why? Because the tank is retreating to try to create space between him and the boss. But the mob is standing there, just casting. He will not move unless he is silenced, and this is what the counterspell should have been used for. If he had done that, the mob would have moved forward. So, this is a key indicator of a good versus bad or middling player, knowing when to use things, not just using them because he can. Now, more on this case, a bit more evidence. Right now, why does he have Ice Barrier up? You do not have to have it all the time up. Outdoors, yes, because you might be ganked at any time, you need to be careful. Inside the dungeon, only when it matters. And you might ask why? Well, because it costs 480 mana, that's about 9% of his total mana right now. And it does absolutely nothing, he's not taking damage, he has no interruptions going around, there is no AoEs. It's a waste of mana. It's also a waste of a cooldown. So this is a spell you use when there's heavy AoE, you do not just walk around with it up. So you can see he uses it twice while running away, so that's about 900 to 1000 mana, that's about the same mana that a mana ruby would give you. That's about 5 frostbolts. Again, on the topic of wasting cooldowns, why is he blinking when running away? You are not in danger. So, blink costs about 35% of base mana. At level 60, that's around 400 mana. Not only that, now he does not have a cooldown if he actually needs it. If there is any mob that, for example, charges him, well, he's just gonna eat it. So what happens is we have a mage saying that he has no mana, complaining that he has no mana, while he wasted around 40 to 50% on completely useless spells. 2 blinks, 2 ice barriers, and a counter spell that really was not needed. A max rank blizzard, completely wasted, and so forth. To sum it up, he's not a good mage, he's just not using his cooldowns in any effective way. Now, in his defense, I can understand his arguments. He had a near wipe just minutes before with his group, he did not trust his group at all, and he clearly considers himself too important to die with his enchanting. I'm sure there's a lot of other enchanters with as many rare recipes as he does, so that's a bad argument, but it's his mindset, I can understand it. But it does not excuse a mage who has so many abilities to escape and survive to just abandon his group. Blizzards, frost novas, cone of colds, there would have saved those 2 people. 100% sure, there is no question whatsoever. In a better group, you might have even been able to fight that, but the call to run was made, and that's the thing. When the shot caller says something, you do it. You do not change your mind midway. It does not matter. It is not worth the risk. But we're not here to evaluate blame, just gameplay. I've seen a few videos of him doing other plays. Honestly, I did not know who he was, who this guild was, but apparently they're quite famous, so I thought it might be interesting to discuss it, add some of my expertise in vanilla WoW, how much I played. I hope this was interesting for you. Now a bit on just random rambling. For example, when I was playing WoW, I used very unorthodox builds. I hate Frost, especially because Blizzard forced me to play it, because in Molten Core everything was immune to my main spec, which is Fire. But soon after we left Molten Core, I just went Fire and never looked back. There was 1 or 2 bosses that would need Frost, but it was completely manageable. And once gear got to a certain level and the talents shifted, I actually started raiding as 30 Fire, 21 Frost. I know, it's a bit weird. I loved it for PvP, it was my main PvP build, but I also used it extensively in PvE. I was raiding with it, it was perfectly fine. Obviously I would change it to Fire and some Arcane if the situation needed it, but that was rare, it was mostly on endurance fights. In the majority of fights it worked very well. So if you choose to be Heretic and go Fire instead of the cookie cutter Frost, which in hardcore, let me give it to you, that's ballsy, what could have you done? You would probably not have improved Blizzard. I personally did because again 30 Fire, 20 Frost, 21 Frost, it had improved Blizzard. But you also have other tools, for example Blast Wave. It applies a 6-second daze, which is a 50% slow to all the minions around you. And while this puts you at higher risk than, for example, Blizzard, where you can cast at a safe distance, it pretty much does a very similar job. When you combine it with Frost Novas, you can crowd control for a very long amount of time, with Cone of Cold, Blast Waves. If you have the Blizzard talents, then you add to it. One important piece of advice for mages: Frost Nova can kill other people because it freezes minions in place, and when they're frozen they just attack whatever's closest, so you need to be careful when you're using it. You don't just use it willy-nilly. I've always been of the school of thought that damage is the primary mage responsibility, crowd control being second. I think if people kill things fast, there's a lot less risk. I do not like to drag out fights, and I understand that mages are expected to crowd control, but you can still fully crowd control and do other tasks, other roles. It's perfectly fine. Just give it a try, by the way. So in summary, the tank messed it up, and please stop harassing people for making mistakes in a video game. I understand tensions are high, but this is no reason to start harassing someone, sending death threats and so forth. He fucked up. He's not a very good mage. It's fine. Let it go. Alright, that's all I have to say, so I hope you have a good one, and I'll haunt your dreams in the next one. Bye!